All that the god said, or the oracle said, was that no one was wiser. And now Socrates takes it upon himself to prove that the oracle is correct. And at one point, as I just read, he says, I would refute the divination or refute the oracle. And throughout the following passages, Socrates makes it sound as if he's on a divine mission, or that in questioning the politicians and the poets and the artisans, he is really fulfilling the command of the god. I mean, that's really his argument, that the god has, or the oracle has put him on this mission to pursue truth. When in reality, according to Socrates' own words, the oracle never did give him a divine mission. The oracle gave him no command to investigate or to prove that he is wiser than everyone else. In short, I think we can say that Socrates distorts the words of the god. And by attempting to investigate the words of the god, Socrates, in a very subtle way, is submitting the Delphic oracle, who is a trusted religious authority. Socrates is submitting that authority to reason. Okay, in a way, he's very subtly undermining the authority of the god. Well, here's just a quick picture of the ruins of the Oracle of Delphi site. Okay, and I've already talked about some of this, but you can actually go today even to the site where Greeks would travel to visit and to consult this Oracle of Delphi. Okay, so not to lose track of our train of thought, the question I have for us to think about is, why would Socrates attempt to prove, using reason, that the god is right or wrong? I mean, it would appear that this very investigation itself would tend to make reason the final standard by which the god is either right or wrong. So I would submit to you that in what would appear to be a very pious action on Socrates' part, that he's fulfilling the command of the god, is in reality an attempt to criticize the god. I mean, it's really religious criticism in a way, because he wants to look to reason as his sole authority. So the god may be right, and maybe there is no one wiser than Socrates. But Socrates will only believe it if he can prove it using human reason. And if you've noticed, I've entitled this slide, Human Wisdom versus Divine Wisdom. And Socrates, at one point in the Apology, in his own account here, says that his wisdom doesn't understand divine wisdom, that human wisdom is somewhat different than divine or religious wisdom. So this could possibly be an act of impiety on Socrates' part. It could be possible that his whole life will be spent in the attempt to prove that what the god said is in fact wrong. Okay? So just something to think about here. I think you could make a strong case for it, but I'm open to other interpretations as well. Okay, so that will wrap up our brief segment on the old accusations. And now let's turn to the new accusations. It's almost as if we could divide the apology into two different parts. The first dealing with the old accusations, and the second part dealing with the new accusations. So these come in 24c and 26b. The new accusations state that Socrates is guilty of corrupting the youth of Athens, and that Socrates is guilty of not believing in the gods of the city. Well, the question we have to ask ourselves is, well, how does he corrupt the young? Does he corrupt the young by not believing in the gods of the city? And also we want to ask ourselves, why does Socrates have this reputation for not believing in the gods of the city? I mean, if we just look at his own testimony of what he said up until this point, it would appear that he's a very religious person. It would appear that he's being respectful of the gods, and that he's being pious and obedient to the command of the gods. And yet, at the same time, he has a reputation for not believing in the gods of the city. Okay, so what is this all about? Socrates' defense against the new accusations. Well, I submit to you that much like his defense against the older accusations, his defense against the new ones sounds impressive on first reading, but when you really dig into the details, it's really not that impressive, in my view anyway. So he first shows that Meletus, his accuser, has never cared for the education of the young. So Socrates immediately turns the table by focusing the attention of everyone on Meletus. And he says that Meletus has never cared for the education of the young. Well, okay, that may be true, but how does that prove that Socrates doesn't corrupt the youth, and that he really does believe in the gods of the city? Next, Socrates argues that no one knowingly does evil. If he does corrupt the youth, Socrates himself, then he does so voluntarily. Okay, if he does so voluntarily, or involuntarily rather, he tends to say that Meletus should correct him, and that Meletus should have compassion on him, and really there shouldn't be no charges brought against him if he does it involuntarily, because he really doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, the same way today we might not hold someone legally accountable if they're unaware of what they're doing, or if they're mentally challenged to the point where they have no real conception of what they're doing. But again, I mean, does Socrates really refute the charge? Does he really respond to the charges that are brought against him? Concerning the charge of not believing in the gods of the city, Socrates here ends up tricking Meletus into confusing the charge with atheism. So if you notice, the original charge was that Socrates doesn't believe in the gods of the city, or he doesn't believe in the gods of the city of Athens. Well, Socrates obviously thinks it's much easier to defend himself against the charge of atheism. So he employs a good lawyer trick, which is to get Meletus, the prosecutor, to confuse the charge. The original charge, as I said, was that he doesn't believe in the gods of the city. Well, one can still believe in a god